Violence was at its peak in the Mexican country. Lives endangered as the brutal cartel groups are walking the streets alive. They torture people with awful methods. One got right in front of his mother's eyes. Let's have a closer look. In the underworld ruled by criminal cartels, unthinkable acts occur amidst unrelenting violence and terror that cause nothing but agony and heartbreak. In the midst of countless horrifying stories, there exists one particularly disturbing incident that serves as an eerie warning about the savagery inherent in humanity. The account narrates the experiences of people subjected to heinous methods and before their mother's eyes. This devastating occurrence is proof of the atrocious deeds committed by cartels. The impact of such unspeakable brutality is forever etched as an indelible scar on those who witness it. As we probe into the depths of this terrifying narrative, it becomes clear just how serious was the cartel's reign. It creates an enduring impression on both individuals and communities. Few criminal groups are as infamous and deadly as MS-13 in the underworld. With training to be brutal and lacking fear, their soldiers perpetrate horrific acts that leave a lasting mark on the darkest areas of society. The chilling torture tactics utilized by the cartel MS-13 will be extensively discussed. Furthermore, it will recount dismal stories associated with their activities and investigate the lives of persons such as Ernesto Miranda, Jose Urares Hernandez, and Juan Garcia Gomez, popularly known as Scooby. Laniz's mistaken targets will also be covered by it. A story about seen by a mourning mother stood out among the others and was especially moving. MS-13 is the deadliest of all cartel groups. They don't just shoot people and get done with it because they believe that it is such an easy and quick death. They take pleasure in being dangerous and inflict as much pain on their victims as they possibly can. Here are some detailed stories of their fearless hitmen. A person named Ernesto Miranda escaped the heat of the Salvadoran War, where he worked as a soldier. He immigrated from El Salvador to Los Angeles and swiftly became entangled in a life of violence. Working in conjunction with other migrants, he created teams that headed up various illicit activities, including drug and human smuggling, as well as gun violence and scuffles on the streets. Still, in 2004, he was caught and sent back to El Salvador, abruptly ending his criminal pursuits. Having made up his mind to change direction, Miranda welcomed a peaceful existence that brought about reform while distancing himself from his murky past. But his life took a dark turn in 2006. He was invited to a party for a member of MS-13, but he turned down the invitation. This proved to be life-threatening for him, as within a few hours he was shot and killed by his own members. He died at the age of 38. After years of seeking justice for their son, Jose Urares Hernandez, the Hernandez family's pursuit finally ended with a resolution in 2022. The life of Jose was taken in a fatal in July 2015. Juan Garcia Gomez, aka Scooby, is responsible for this tragic loss. Following his conviction for racketeering conspiracy involving Garcia Gomez perpetrated a brutal and violent crime. A compelling urge to gain membership in a brutal criminal group consumed him. His actions resulted in a 35-year prison sentence, leaving him to face the repercussions of his choices. In association with MS-13 gang members, Laniz mistakenly targeted 5 boys, leading to a tragic loss and the escape of one survivor. Assuming incorrectly that the victims were part of an enemy gang, Laniz and her associates inflicted unimaginable suffering upon them. The boys sadly perished, but amidst the turmoil, Alex Artiga Ruiz escaped death's grip. He can still recall in great detail the horror of running away from danger, pursued without respite by gangsters who uttered threats of harm. Laniz was ultimately arrested by the authorities and prosecuted for different offenses. The evidence against her was too much to refute, despite pleading not guilty. She is presently anticipating sentencing for her awful crimes. Tragedy struck in May 2006 when a man was fatally shot right before his mother's eyes on a fateful Saturday night. The incident resulted in the mother experiencing lifelong trauma. Watching a child's life end before their eyes causes an incomprehensible amount of pain that cannot be expressed in words. MS-13's actions are characterized by callousness and cruelty, as illustrated by this tragic incident. The trauma and grief inflicted on the mother have had a profound impact that cannot be measured. MS-13 and other gangs' cruel torture techniques leave permanent marks on the communities they terrorize. The tales shared here demonstrate the severe outcomes of their behavior. Be it through individuals seeking reformation or the pursuit of justice for victims, every account carries its own burden of tragedy and loss. The fight against organized crime requires society to remain united and vigilant while dismantling cartels and protecting innocent lives. The actions of these merciless gangs cause suffering to the innocent population. To achieve a safer world, free from the grip of such brutality, requires united and concerted efforts. The Honduran government's crackdown on their activities led the rture gang to orchestrate a chilling mass in a disturbing display of protest on December 23, 2004. An MS-13 orchestrated brutal attack targeted a bus full of primarily women and children. This incident left many with a heavy heart as 28 innocent lives were cut short tragically. The violent nature of the act deeply impacted the nation, causing families to break apart and communities to reel from senseless brutality. A person who played a role in organizing the Honduran massacre was Juan Matista Jimenez from the rture gang. The dark shadow over Jimenez's connection to the gang deepened due to his involvement in planning and executing the ambush. He awaits justice along with other gang members after being arrested and put behind bars for their appalling actions. After being locked up, the future of Juan Matista Jimenez looked grim. Perceiving Jimenez as a danger to their organization, some members of MS-13 opted for his silencing due to displeasure over how much attention had been drawn by the Honduras massacre. Intra-gang violence claimed yet another life as Jimenez was killed by fellow gang members behind prison walls. The ruthless and treacherous nature of these criminal networks was exposed by this heinous act of betrayal, where loyalty is a fragile concept. The unforgettable scene unraveled before the mourning mother's eyes and became a permanent memory for her. The loss of her dear child inflicted an unbearable pain and agony that pierced through her soul. Observing a calamity of such proportions causes an enduring wound, covering a shattered being with dread and sorrow. The mother's tragedy underscores the cruel and inhumane nature of cartel activities. A family was driving through a neighborhood street in 2008 when a gang member shot 3 of its members, resulting in tragedy. With great bravery and courage, Andrew Bologna, 21, testified against gang member Edwin Ramos after miraculously surviving an attack. Ramos ultimately got handed down 3 life sentences, along with an additional 182 years for other convictions. Despite experiencing unimaginable loss, Bologna's courage in pursuing justice shows his incredible resilience. MS-13 controls one of the notorious territories in MacArthur Park in Los Angeles. The dangerous gang has a reputation for their particularly hostile actions towards transgender women in the vicinity of the park. In October 2020, several targeted attacks occurred against transgender women in the park. Gang members committed brutal assaults against 2 individuals, Daniela Hernandez and Margarita Valencia. Through persistent efforts to bring justice, Golden, Javier Tremin Rodriguez, and La Inquieta's Margarita Valencia were caught. The trial for their crimes is what they are currently awaiting. MS-13's violent and discriminatory actions towards the transgender community are highlighted by these incidents. In December 2007, Omaña fatally killed 2 brothers within their family-owned restaurant. The police arrested him within only 5 days of committing the crime and found him holding onto the weapon used in it. Ramirez Omaña maintained a hazardous and unreformed disposition despite being locked up. His bold endeavor to carry a blade to the courthouse simply highlighted the alarming truth of his character. Even though he was incarcerated, Omaña's activities highlight the continuing threat posed by individuals involved in criminal cartels. Criminal organizations employ brutal torture methods that instill horror and despair. A grieving mother's witness of a devastating incident showcased the immense pain inflicted upon innocent lives. Furthermore, the power grip of MS-13 on MacArthur Park underscores the necessity of combating violence and discrimination urgently. This is accompanied by their aimed aggression against transgender women. the vital function of law enforcement is underscored by the unwavering endeavor to achieve justice, as demonstrated in examples such as Andrew Bologna, Daniela Hernandez, Margarita Valencia, and Omania, who shows no regret. This assists with dismantling these illegal networks. Society as a whole has a responsibility to denounce cartel brutality while safeguarding everyone's protection and comfort, irrespective of their gender identities or backgrounds. The harsh truth of cartel torture techniques and their destructive outcomes must not be overlooked. The depths of depravity reached by criminal organizations were shown in the Salvatrucha gang's horrific massacre. By being murdered by his own gang members, Juan Matista Jimenez exposed the unpredictable and treacherous nature of these criminal networks. It emphasizes the risks that members encounter even from their own colleagues. Society must remain determined to combat organized crime and dismantle cartels, securing the uninvolved from the horrifying actions executed by these brutal crews. A world where such atrocities are nothing but a distant memory requires unwavering determination.